morning. In case you're just tuning in, still the ultimate morning show here on Raypower 100.5 FM. Welcome back to the Abuja studio. I am here with Chooks.
Yes, good morning, Dim. Great to be here on a Monday morning. We started off the show, at 6:30.
Yeah.
We're going great so far. So good morning to our viewers as well and listener out there.
Yes, that's because we are live on YouTube right now for the newspaper review. You can just check it out using Raypower Abuja right there on YouTube. But let's get right into the paper.
Yes, so I'm starting off with the Daily Sun. We have ADC takes survival fights to Supreme Court. Apex Court hears Mark's appeal tomorrow. Kano allocates 60% leadership structure to Kwankwaso, 40% to Legacy Party. Others. Page 6 and 27 covers that. Deeper energy crisis feared as US-Iran peace talks stall. Experts want FG to ramp up crude production. Page 22. Ex-IGP Adamu declares support for state police. Page 28. Air traffic controllers warn of nationwide flight delays over safety concerns. Lament bad equipment, poor welfare. Page 2. Scores feared killed in NAF bombing error in Borno. Page 4. $5 billion swap deal tightens Nigerians' debt knot. States still borrowing despite FAC windfall. Page 25. And that's the front page of the Daily Sun.
And now to the front page of the Daily Assets. Begins on the sad note. NAF airstrike hits Borno Yobe boundary market, eliminates over 30 terrorists. Talking about how it also affects some civilians there. Military probes alleged civilian casualties. Air Force attributes strike on intelligence. Now that story for the Daily Asset is on page 2. Federal government tasks Dangote Sugar on 600,000 MT capacity expansion. Government seeks urgent boost in local output, targets less dependence on imports. Well, that story opens on the front page of the Daily Asset this morning and continues on page 2. Kogi dismisses claims of ethnic exclusion in employment. Page 23, read there. NCEC faces September 26 for council election. That's on page 13. Psychiatrist decries high cost of mental illness treatment. And this is on page 16. We're a bit of a foreign story. Trump orders U.S. naval blockade of Strait of Hormuz. That was on 28. And Prosperity Cup 2026, that's sports there. Local government the area finals get date. Page 30. That's it for the Daily Assets.
All right, now to the Standard Times. We have scores feared dead as Nigerian Air Force airstrike hits busy market in Borno Yobe border. Starts on the front page, continues on page 2. Akinwumi Adesina dedicates African Lifetime Achievement Award to Nigeria, Africa. Starts on the front page, continues on page 3. Kano ADC allocates 60% of leadership positions to Kwankwaso block. Page 4. Probe 2.9 billion naira missing in communications satellite nuclear regulatory agencies. Serap tells Tinubu. Page 13. Taiwo Yedele announces correction underway for Nigeria's new tax law. Admit errors. Page 3. Oyo government palace respond as Fayose alleges Makinde is plotting to remove Olubadan. Page 3. Truck to Iran. You can't charge fees to tankers going through Strait of Hormuz. Page 2. Imo police launches manhunt against murderers of Monarch. 5 others. Page 3. Nigeria's oil output drops to 1.51 million barrels per day. NNPC remits 1.804 trillion naira. Starts on the front page, continues on page 13 as well. Amotekun parades 164 suspected criminals in Ondo. Page 4. And sugar production. You must deliver 60,000 metric ton in 2030. FG tells Dangote Sugar on page 13. And that's it for the Standard Times.
All right, now for the Daily Global. Alleged terrorism financing. Federal government releases names of 48 individuals, 12 entities, imposes sanction. It's the big story there from the Daily Global. Wike scam takes over PDP secretariat in Abuja. A call to reverence God and respect for God's servants is another one here. Yet another big story. Catholic priest plan big for Niger Delta orphans. That's another one there. Recruitment screening exercise progressing smoothly with utmost transparency and professionalism. And federal government to withdraw passports from citizens to renounce who renounce status. Now that's it for the Daily Global this morning.
All right, now to the Observer Times. We have Zulum backs NAF airstrike, says strike targeted notorious terrorist logistics base. Jili Gazabure market shot since 2021 over insurgent activities. Borno Yobe military consulted before airstrike action on page 1 of the Observer Times. FG orders withdrawal of passports from Nigerians who renounce citizenship, page 5. Police arrest man for allegedly severing 6-year-old girl's head in Ibadan, page 7. NDLEA arrests 93-year-old man, medical doctor, for alleged drug trafficking, page 6. AFDB approves $200 million loan to boost Nigeria's digital infrastructure, page 3. And that's it for the Observer Times.
Well, let's check out the Nigerian News Direct. The big story here says World Bank recommendations on fuel, food imports could reverse economic gains, coming from CPPE as a warning there. That one is on page 13. Now, international investors inject 1.27 trillion naira capital as CBN concludes banking recapitalization, page 11 read. And on Zenith Bank, strategic decoupling of NPL's shareholder value fuels growth, page 16 read there. Meanwhile, NDLEA arrests 93-year-old grandpa, medical doctor, over cocaine and skunk trafficking. Well, that is on page 22. Nigeria loses over 38 MT of food annually, according to reports. That's on page 3. And Fitch affirms Nigeria's B rating with stable outlook. And that's on page 13. And that wraps up the front page of the Nigerian News Direct.
All right, now to the Daily Monitor. We have Jili Market airstrike. Military, Yobe government defend action as Amnesty ACF kick. The operation was a precision strike on suspected terrorist enclave, logistics hub, their collaborators. That's from the army. And NAF goes on to say, we are probing alleged civilian casualties after Borno airstrike. Serap to Tinubu, probe alleged 2.9 billion naira fraud in NICOMSAT, NNRA, warns that failure to address the allegations would continue to erode public trust. Borno Zulum warns residents against aiding Boko Haram insurgents, page 4. CPPE rejects World Bank imports push, urges industrial focus, on page 4. Troops nab 60 suspects, rescue 50 victims in nationwide operations, page 4. And that's the front page of the Daily Monitor.
And now to the front page of the Leadership newspaper begins with the story on insecurity. Says ex-IGP, CSOs, lawyers, others reignite calls for state police. Now that story in detail is on page 4 of the Leadership. 45 kidnapped victims rescued in Bauchi is yet another story here. This one is on page 20. Meanwhile, on politics, Atiku, Obi, Amechi, Tambuwal, others converge for ADC convention tomorrow. Now, this story is on page 23. African export demand end to UK-US control of Chagos Island. That is on page 7. Multiple taxes, poor infrastructure, crippling manufacturers, coming from MAN. And this is on page 13. Now, NDLEA arrests 93-year-old grandpa, medical doctor, for cocaine, scone trafficking, page 8 read there for the Leadership newspaper. U.S. government commends Nigeria for conviction of 386 terrorists. Well, this is on page 4 of the Leadership. Lastly, from the Leadership, airstrike hit terrorists, civilian in Borno market, page 11 read. And that's it from the Leadership newspaper.
All right, we'll go on a short break and return with business stories. To stay with us.
This is the newspaper review.
Welcome back. Taking a look at the business NG, we have Fitch retains Nigeria's B rating as reforms boost reserves and economic outlook, page 2. We also have Nigeria demands action as FG names 48 alleged terror sponsors, 12 entities. A bit of political story there from the Business NG. Investors split on bank stock overexposure in NGX portfolios on page 2. And Nigeria oil output peaks at 1.69 million barrels per day, falls to 1.51 million barrels a day in 12-month volatile run, page 2 of the Business Engine. That's it for the Business Engine.
And now for the Business Diary. 90,000 fresh workers join new pension scheme as pension hits 29.4 trillion naira. This is on page 2 of the Business Diary. City demolish Chelsea as this is a little bit of a sports story here. As Stamford Bridge to ignite title charge. Well, that's on page 15. Anyway, Zenith Bank's profit dips by 123 billion naira as total assets drop by 400 billion naira. Page 2, read there. You might want to find out details on that story. Now, cash outside bank shrinks to 122.14 trillion naira. On page 4 of the Business Diary is where you get details on that. Equity traders reap 1.36 trillion naira in weekly bullish trading. Page 9, read. NICOM fixes 5 billion naira capitalization for policyholders protection fund managers. Page 10, read. And lastly, from the Business Diary, Wema Bank customers get 1.74 billion naira loans as deposits hit 3.29 trillion naira. Well, that one is on page 8, and that's it for the business story from the Business Diary. And about all the papers we've checked out today, talking about the Leadership, the Nigerian News Direct, the Daily Global, the Daily Asset, the business story from the Business Diary.
Also took a look at the Daily Sun, Standard Times, Observers Times, Daily Monitor, and the Business NG. And on the front pages of the papers this morning, the issue with the airstrike that happened, and well, the scores, the results, from the pages this morning, talking about how scores, fear dead as Nigerian Air Force airstrike hits busy markets in Borno, Yobe border. The Nigerian Air Force, as I know, did refute that claim, yesterday, that civilians were targeted, because I think reports of 200 people, killed in that. And I think it's very important for those involved in the political space, the governors and co, to be able to educate their people on safety, not hanging around, I'm in the midst of this terrorists. And the governor, in one of the pages, Zulum, was talking about warning residents against aiding Boko Haram insurgents, being in their space and all, because if they are going to get attacked, you might be used as a buffer, for example, against the Nigerian security agencies, or you could also be mistaken for one. So it's also important to protect yourself, and they need to get this out to their people in their local languages for them to understand and all. And there's also reports that the markets were actually closed. They were not used by civilians. It was used by the terrorists so they had to target that area. So, but they've come out to say that they're going to probe the claims of innocent Nigerians, getting killed, and hopefully we get a response from them on their probe as soon as possible as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the reaction from the Nigerian Air Force is one that you say, is amazing. It's a welcome development. Try to, as much as possible, take actions on things like this. But you can't take away the fact that there is every need to be very careful in order to, we don't want to have those stories coming up. Oh, citizens were affected in the middle of all of this. You're trying to do something, but you get to hit those who you're trying to protect. So really probing into that, ensuring that such does not repeat itself again, if that was actually the fact, is another thing that really needs to be taken into account.
Yeah, but if the Nigerian Air Force had done due consultations, as they said, on the Observer Times, they consulted with Borno State, with Yobe State. if there were understanding between all parties that, oh, this is where they are and all, and I think there shouldn't have been any case of a civilian getting injured because, or getting killed, because I'm sure these states know who and who is in these places. They
Yeah.
know, oh, are civilians actually in these places and whatnot. So the military had done due diligence as they said they have. Then they probably we're having some misinformation, out there, but we'll still wait for the probe
Yeah.
to be done, the investigations to be done, which is very important. If something like this happens, you obviously need to investigate the number of casualties, identify people, link these people to find out if civilians were actually harmed or not. But if due diligence was done as was claimed by consulting all parties involved, then probably we might just have some misleading information out there.
Yeah, that truly, we really need to look into that and ensure that that is something we don't get to, see play itself again. Around 2017, we also heard something like this. Oh, there was this, attempts to suppress, and then civilians were also here. So really fighting to see that such doesn't really happen again is another welcome development, something that needs to be done. But away from that, the federal government, according to some of the papers, released names of about 48 individuals and about 12 entities who they say are fingered in this alleged terrorism financing saga, or the story that has been going on. And immediately sanctions were imposed on them, which I would say, yes, it's really, really a welcome development. I mean, having to freeze their accounts, businesses, and, transactions, whether locally or internationally, is a very huge one, is really a welcome development. But away from that, isn't it really such a huge thing if you list these names of people and you say that these people are part of who are financing this? I think deeper actions also needs to be taken to ensure, because I at a point I was like, it can't be true that you will have citizens, our brothers, who are actually supporting our brothers to kill our brothers in our country. It doesn't look like it's something that should be happening. It sounds like fairy tale, but it's so sad to see that. I mean, if the federal government can come up with this list, that means actually that whole rumor, that speculation is actually fact. To see things like that. So imposing the sanction on them, I don't think it's just enough.
Yes, I mean, you might put out a list there, sanction them, whatever, but what do you actually do in terms of real-time punishment?
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, real-time punishment is what's going to deter others
from doing exactly
from doing such.
Yes.
So it's not just about putting a list or sanctioning them. It's real-time jail sentences, very strict punishments for them. Because if you're just going to give them a slap on the wrist through sanctions and whatever, somebody else might just feel, oh, okay, that's what you need to do that's what you can get away with.
That's the highest that can happen to you.
So how do we actually make sure we let other people know that this is not a safe space for you?
Exactly.
For somebody who's sponsoring or financing terrorism, this country is not a safe space for you. You're going to be met with the harshest of punishments as possible. So it's good they've taken this action, because there have been accusations at the federal government that they
back
know
and
these
forth,
people,
yes,
but they have not done anything about it. So, but apart from just drawing up a list, and what do you do? Try them to court, sentence them, give them the harshest punishment.
Yeah, exactly. So that's more like saying, okay, just don't stop at this one. Yeah, alleged. Yeah, we're trying to, but keep probing further, look deeper, ensure, keep going.
Find out who else is connected that you don't know.
We can't have this kind of a thing happening. When those cries were on, like I said earlier, Chooks, let me sound like a child at heart, because I really didn't want to believe that we are found in such situation. Maybe I thought it was just like somebody just trying to come out to just be relevant, just make a statement. But if you can be seeing something like this to the extent that the federal government attention has also been drawn to the fact that they are imposing sanctions, I mean, probe further. make sure, get details and take appropriate action, because these people are equal. In fact, it's terrorism on its own already.
Yeah.
You can't say that you didn't pull the trigger doesn't mean that you were not there to support the whole action. So really looking into it is one huge thing that I believe that the government can continue to do. Don't just let it stop there, and just imposing sanctions on them. I don't think that's just the only thing that needs to be taken.
Yes, and to the ADC, according to reports, they've taken their survival fights to the Supreme Court. The appeal court is going to be hearing, David Mark's case tomorrow, and that's against, INEC's decision to remove them as leadership of the party, so putting them in a limbo as it is. So they're in a race against time to have their acts in order, their conversion, get individuals into positions to run for the 2027 election. And according to the reports, I think they gave the Kwankwaso group as a leadership 60-40, splits for the ADC. I guess 60 for them to have come to the ADC, so something for his people who are interested to run for leadership positions in Kano and beyond. So, but for the ADC, they need to find how to get this case, sorted out. Win this case is very important because there's a deadline to present candidates for the 2027 elections. There's a deadline for your conventions and all. So they're going to still go ahead with their convention. According to
the leadership newspaper saying that they are ready to converge tomorrow for their convention.
Yeah, so. I think there was a state that even had theirs. That was it last week in the ADC, as well. So would they get an accelerated hearing by tomorrow? That's another key thing, because I don't think INEC will recognize it if there is no judgment by that tomorrow. Before,
just like what happened to the PDP after their convention, that was a very huge hit.
Yeah, they had to now do another one.
Now said that one is null and void. All of those things are serious setback to any political party working towards doing what they need to do, working strong for the next coming administration. I mean, it's usually a very huge setback. It seems as if there is a little bit of calm and quiet in the PDP section right now. I think the ADC picked it up where the PDP left it, with the whole drama that's following on it. And hopefully they would also, like you said, I don't know how fast they will be able to expedite action on that. I don't know how fast, but that will be, well, at the end of the day, let the party, the major thing here is let the parties be ready for the 2027. You have to be ready. These back and forth, these factions and no factions, leaders and non-leaders happening intra-party is not in any way helping the party. Is not in any way even helping the decision of Nigerians. Because I don't know the ADC that we are looking at now that will come out, tomorrow to say, is it David Mark or the? So we just need to keep working. They just need to keep working harder to make sure that they put everything in order for the upcoming election, which is not far. You might be thinking that, we're just in April, but those who are ready have already, are working towards it. Like those who have interest in, the elections and all, have already resigned according to how the new amended electoral act has actually said. So every other person is working towards, being prepared, being ready. You can't continue to have your house dragging back and forth. Really needs to do fast, expedite action, and be ready. So we don't need to be seeing this once again about the parties going up and down about, taking matters to court and still trying to put their hearts together. That has to be old story by now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure they know that, and they have that at the back of their head. So that's why they definitely have to work that out as soon as possible. Well, I think on the front page, one of the papers this morning, one of the ex-IGP, supporting.
Yes, that was from the leadership on the issue of state policing. Ex-IGP, the CSOs, even lawyers, among other people, are already igniting call for state police. Well, the president himself has already talked about the fact that it's on state police. The big question remains, are we certain that state police, to a very great extent, will help us to curb the issue of insecurity in Nigeria?
Well, it will give more, control to also the governors in the tackle of insecurity. With some understanding, the likes of Governor Dodo, even Governor Zulum and co have actually taken this fight, seriously. But it gets to a certain level that their powers, cannot get them beyond. I remember one of the reviewer on the newspaper review on Kakaki was talking about how Governor Dodo actually even kidnapped the terrorist families to be able to get to the terrorists. So they held the terrorists, the
So that
relatives of
means
terrorists.
you
So
know
if
them
do- yes,
to the
we
house.
know those
Like,
people. So if you are going to kill our people, we know your own people. So we'll hold your people. Come and carry your own
But
people,
this
and
is
then we'll
bad.
hold you. So
This is
it gives
bad.
them a bit of control on security operatives. There are some certain things they cannot do right now in terms of with the police. So if you give them that, they're able to work together, connect together, man their borders, properly, and take on the fight against insecurity in their states.
Yeah, just ask the question, when did we get here? But then, this is where we are. Anyway, it's already 8 o'clock. Let's take you to the network studio for the news on the hour. Don't forget that political platform will be coming your way at 9:15, and that will also be airing live on the YouTube platform Raypower Abuja, as well as guess what, Wudima at 11:05. His name is Chooks.
Yes, Ashes Dilma. Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Raypower. It's gonna be a great day. You've got the ultimate morning show on your radio. The ultimate morning show.